Hi everybody, this is Greg with the Dice Must Flow. Welcome back to another episode. And before we start, let me say, if you like the episode, please consider subscribing to the channel. Please like the video, and it really does help. So let's dig into it. What is Malign Portents? It's basically the newest global campaign for Age of Sigmar, dealing with Nagash and his plan in Shyish, I believe this is, the plane of death, and he's making his big move. Look at the back cover here. We can see that contains the story arc, details of the Harbingers, and war scrolls for them, and battle plans and rules for playing games set in Shyish. So let's crack it open and take a look. First page, basically, again, we got the story of Age of Sigmar, how the Stormcast Eternals came down. And you can see basically they have sort of a how to use this book. And they do, it's kind of odd, they do talk about this Malign Portents website here. And basically the story is going to be evolving, and they want you to kind of keep track of what's going on with the Malign Portents website. It says that it's important to note that all rules presented in the book are optional. They can be used or not in games. And so basically these are things that it's sort of an optional campaign rules. Battles set in the periods are going to give these special Malign Portents rules, but you don't have to use them if you don't want to. Again, talking about the Malign Portents, and this is sort of the period became known as the time of tribulations. So, once again, we kind of get the whole story of the Age of Sigmar and starting. So it talks about Chaos Ascendant. I kind of wish they didn't need to. I guess I understand why they need to go about this. But yet this basically talks about how Sigmar had pulled people together and then had to basically brought the other gods, and then Chaos came and attacked, and he pulled everything back to his home plane. And then he has created the Stormcast Eternals, and they came down. And again, that's this story here. So this is kind of what's gone on up till now. We've got a section talking about the moral realms and what the different realms are. So the next big thing is the War Scryer Citadels. Got some bouncy there. And these are going to be a new terrain piece that they have added. But basically these they're strongholds built upon meteorites hurled by Sigmar himself. And people can go to these citadels and try and figure out read the future, and figure out these portents. And one of the main people that do that or build these are the Lord Ordinators. And so we've seen that in the lead up to this event. There's been the special Lord Ordinator guy. Got some story about him that was added. Then basically there's going to be 4 sort of champions for the Malign Portents. The next one is for Chaos, is the Dark Oath War Queen, and she is a leader for Chaos, and somewhat looks like a like a corn type person. I have seen some really cool paintings of the miniature with her, and some of them doing kind of like a frost view, and that looks pretty good. And so we'll go from there. The next up is Destruction Rising, and the character there is the Fungoid Cave Shaman. Finally, we have Death on the Winds, and the character there is the Knight of Shrouds. And this character is some sort of night haunt wraith that sort of sold his soul to Sigmar. I mean, not Sigmar, to Nagash. Next up we get the realm of Shyish, and this is basically talks about the realm of death and what it is there. And they go into the story of Gravesand, and what Nagash has been doing is he's been going out and for eons, thousands of years, he has had Arkan the Black and his followers going out and getting all of the Shyish realm stone that has fallen, even in the smallest bit, and they call this the Gravesand. So even all of these smallest bits of power that he's going and gathering, and he was bringing them back to his own domain. And he's building this great black inverted pyramid. And it basically ripples and eddies and Shyish energies and cascade across the cosmos. And so this is part of Nagash's scheme to build this pyramid and get it finished. And he's almost there. Nagash has ensured that the greatest concentration of magical energy in Shyish was no longer at its edge, but at the center. It was a work of cosmic ambition, and it allowed, if allowed to reach completion, truly will have horrific consequences. So that's setting the stage for what's going on. So the doomed march, with all these dark portents abounding, seers and prophets from every race seeking to allay this new doom, dozens of harbingers led war hosts into Shyish to attack the great necromancer Nagash's seat of power. So they go into that. In the time of tribulations, as the malignant omens of Shayish's ascendance spread across the land, every one of the mortal realms found itself assailed by new perils. Some of the most unscrupulous people found opportunity in this time, but most prepared themselves for battle against the new foe, the restless dead. So they go into basically the story that has gone on the Malign Portents website, the Macabre Splendor. It's going to be a whole bunch of art. Once again, fantastic art showing the different battles in the land of death. Here you can see Roddigus Rainfather, the story where he actually helped battle and invade Shyish. And here you can see the Lord Ordinator seeks his vengeance, leading forces from the Storm Host Extremists against the legions of the Blood Gods. So these are actually basically the Khorne versus the Stormcast in the land of Shyish. So in heavy metal, we're going to get a look at the new 4 champions that came out: the Dark Oath War Queen, the Lord Ordinator, the Knight of Shrouds, and the Fungoid Caveman. The next section of the book is called Rise of the Damned, and basically this has got the time of tribulations, saw all 8 mortal realms beset by ominous signs and portents of woe. And here they present a selection of suitably grim and foreboding rules that enable you to recreate battles in this time. So this is sort of the special battles of this area. So basically you've got the Realm of Death rules, and you've got the Malign Portents actual rules where characters can go and basically read these portents, and it affects the battle in some way. There's new battle plans. The 4 Harbingers have war scrolls that are added to them, and they may actually affect the portents as well. And finally, they're going to have rules for the War Scryer Citadel. So just kind of looking here, we have the Realm of Death, and wizards know the following spell. Any battle fought in the Realm of Death, they know the Pall of Doom, casting value of 6. Subtract 2 from the bravery characteristics of a unit you pick. And then there's also commands your general can use no matter when in the Realm of Death. And this is use a command ability and roll a die. If the die is less than the number of models that have been slain, add 1 to the attack characteristic of weapons. And That's pretty good. And a Soul Force Sacrifice command ability. If the general uses this command, pick a friendly unit within 3 inches of them, allocate any number of wounds to that unit. You can then heal 1 wound that has been allocated to your general for each wound you allocate in that manner. So basically you're going to allow your general to kill off other units, smaller models near him, and heal himself. And so then they have Realmscape features that are basically talk about, you can randomly roll to determine what the battle is. So you can add bravery, or you can on a 6+ pick an enemy unit, and the unit suffers a D3 wounds. Then there's the Power of Death. In order to determine the effects of Power of Death in your games, make a notice whenever a unit is slain on the battlefield. At the start of the following hero phase, the players whose turn is taking it rolls a d6, adds 1 for each unit that was destroyed in the previous turn, and consult this table below. So you can all the way go from cheat death to just a withering wind. Units on the battlefield suffer 1 mortal wound is the minimum. And some of them, like the Kiss of Death, pick an enemy unit in the battlefield on the battlefield, and that unit suffers a D3 mortal wound. So basically all of these things basically happen, and when a unit dies in the plane of death in Shaiish, you're going to roll and determine something else that happens because of that. So that's kind of cool. Next up, we got our Malign Portents. And Malign Portents is basically about prophecy points. And so what you want to do is you're basically going to get prophecy points, and basically by gathering these prophecy points, you can quote unquote read a prophecy and then use the reading of that prophecy to determine certain things that happen. So you can have guiding Malign Portents that can represent the guiding light or whatever that you're following. And so for prophecy points, if you're being fought in Shaiish, that you're going to get an additional 3. If a Harbinger, which one of the 4 new characters in your army, you're going to get an additional +3. If your hero is in the Warscar Citadel, you're going to get an additional +3. And for every priest or wizard from your army that is on the battlefield, you're going to get an additional +1 number of prophecy points. And these can be spent anytime at the beginning of your phase. And each player is also going to get to roll a d6. So if you don't have any of these, you're still going to have the chance to get some. So they basically have the Falling Stars prophecy points. And it's, you can interpret this sign. 2 prophecy points, interpret this sign. That's what they call this. And immediately after failing a save roll for the interpreter, re-roll that save roll. So basically you can re-roll a save. Or for 3 prophecy points, you can interpret this sign at the start of a combat phase. Pick a friendly unit within 18 inches of the interpreter. In that phase, re-roll save rolls for 1 for that unit. So basically, it's kind of a way of getting out of the normal prophecy. These prophecy points are getting out of the normal Age of Sigmar battles. So basically, by spending these prophecy points, you're sort of changing the way all the units can act each turn. So just kind of looking here, there's the Bloodied Skull, which has like for the Creeping Death 4 prophecy points, which is one of the more expensive ones here. Interpret this sign in your hero phase. Pick an enemy unit wholly within 18 inches of the interpreter and roll a dice each model in that unit for each model in that unit, and that unit suffers a mortal wound for each 6+. So that's quite powerful. And then the Black Void, and finally Bale Moon and Writhing Serpent prophecy points. And so, here's just a false portent. Interpret this sign immediately after an enemy wizard casts a spell. The interpreter can attempt to unbind that spell as if they were a wizard. So again, you can kind of see that it's throwing in some sort of extra stuff here that kind of just changes the battles. And finally, I guess there is one more called the Red Mist. Next up in the book, they have rules for skirmish. And I know you guys know that I do like the skirmish game quite a bit. So they basically have the points for the 4 Harbingers in skirmish, and how to use Malign Portents in skirmish. They have rules for that. I think that's a good addition. So they got the command abilities and skirmish artifacts of power and skirmish mysterious terrain. So skirmish was kind of some little one-off that they did, And I kind of like that they're actually supporting it in this next book, because it is something that's nice to do with a little bit of time to just kind of try and do a small skirmish battle. Next up, they have a skirmish battle plan. And finally, they get into some narrative battle plans. Another battle that came from below. You're going to have a protector and an adversary. And they have actually a rule here about how to link these two battles. So that's cool, like a little mini campaign. Another narrative battle plan for another battle plan called Twice the Death. So then they got some pitched battle plans, which I guess is really more for like not the narrative game, but for just if you were playing points. So then they got the Dark Omens and Heralds of Woe battle plans here. And finally, we're going to get to some of the War Scrolls. So we have the Lord Ordinator, and there he is in all his glory. And you can see he's basically just got 5 attacks, 4+ to hit, 3+ to wound, but no rend. And the weird thing on him is that he can add 1 to hit rolls for each friendly Order War Machine within 6 inches of him. And yet Stormcast Eternals themselves don't have War Machines. And so this guy really is a leader that's going to be brought in for just sort of the generic Order armies as well. So it's kind of odd that that's his special ability. But I think it does kind of try and prove that they're not just going for him being Stormcast only. They have special portents that Lord Ordinators can interpret. And that's going to be a common thing. You can see the signs from the Dark Gods. The Dark Oath Queen is going to have special portents that they can interpret, special actions that they can spend their points on. The Dark Oath Queen, 4 attacks, 3+ to hit, 3+ to wound, and 1 rend. And she has the special ability, if she's the general of your army, you can reroll failed charge rolls for Slaves to Darkness units. So that's going to be basically your Warriors of Chaos and things like that. Moving on, we got the Fungoid Shaman. And, you know, I don't know how this guy plays, but this is one of the cooler looking models that they've come out with recently. And he's just basically got 3 attacks at 4+ to hit, 4+ to wound, or 2 attacks with his Teeth, Spore Squig, 4+ to hit, 4+ to wound with no rend. And once per battle in the hero phase, you can choose the Fungoid Cave Shaman to consume a Death Cap Mushroom. If you do, then until your next hero phase, you cannot attack with this model's Moonsickle, but you can re-roll failed casting, unbinding, and save rolls. And there's the Hallucinogenic Stupor. Roll a dice each time you allocate wound or mortal wound to this model. On a 5+, it's negated, so essentially he's got Disgustingly Resilient. And he has a special spell called Spore Maws, casting value of 7. Each enemy unit within a D6 inches of this model suffers a D3 mortal wounds. So that's probably not the greatest in the world. But he is a wizard, and he does have the signs from Gorka Morka spells that, portents that he can use. And finally, there's the Knight of Shrouds. Again, I think this is a really cool looking model. I haven't picked one up myself, but I need to. He's got the Sword of Stolen Hours, 4 attacks, 3+ to hit, 3+ to wound, 1 rend, and 2 damage. And he's ethereal, and this is kind of interesting, is that the ethereal is he ignores modifiers, positive or negative, when making save rolls for this model. So his save roll is straight up 4-up, no matter what spells he has on him or special things he has. He's got this sword that each time a wound inflicted by the sword slays an enemy hero, heal 1 wound to this model. And that's pretty situational. You're really not going to be getting much of that there. Again, he's got his special portents that he can spend points on. And finally, they got the rules for the Warscryer Citadel, which is you know, where they've had these meteorites from Sigmar crashed, and these were built by these were built. Finally, we got the pitched battle profile, so you got points for these guys, and this is how many points each of the 4 Harbinger units have. And there you have it. And that's the book. And what do I think? You know, I like all the history here, but I honestly was disappointed. Malign Portents was such a big build-up that they had. I was so waiting for all the interesting stuff to see what the story was, and they're really, honestly, not a lot of story here. They go through a whole lot of stuff that you guys have already seen or we've already known, and then you know, on their story online, they go into more detail about the history of what's going on. For example, Rodigus, and he had a failed attack. They didn't put that or flesh that out in here at all. And I guess I've heard part of the reason of this is that you know, this is really setting up to be a global campaign, and so what ends up happening in the time as we go on here in this, as they kick off this global campaign, players doing things will influence what happened in history. So that quote-unquote history is not written yet. And so we really don't have a lot of that. So basically, this is mostly a book that's just about how to interpret these portents. And, you know, if you wanted to play this variant. And I guess, you know, if you play a lot of AOS, that's probably what you need, and this is going to be something different. I actually don't get to play a lot. I do a lot of the reading and everything, and so I don't really find that this probably would have been is a very useful item for me unless I was going to try and participate in the global campaign. Because, and I have a feeling, and maybe I'm wrong, but when you try and go play a game, most people are not going to want to do this goofy stuff. I just have that feeling. So, I guess I'm kind of negative on it. But the rules for the battles in Shyish are really cool. I can't wait to find out what happened with Nagash, what his real plan is with the Black Pyramid, and how that's going to work into the world as we know it. So that's my review for Malign Portents, and we will talk to you later. Thanks, and have a good day.